Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
When I moved into the neighborhood, everything seemed just fine. It was a peaceful little suburb tucked behind a row of older trees and flanked by a crumbling brick sign that once said something grand, now barely legible. The streets were wide enough for parked cars and bike riders. There were flower beds spilling over with petunias and roses. Dogs barked, kids yelled, and people waved in that automatic way that didn't mean much but still felt better than nothing. My name's Jeff. I just bought the house on Ashcroft Drive, third from the end, with a creaky wooden porch and a shed that leaned slightly to the left. It needed work, but it was mine. After years of renting, saving, and working overtime, I finally had something to show for it. Or so I thought. Barely 48 hours after the movers dropped off the last of my stuff, there was a knock on my front door. I opened it to find a middle-aged guy in a polo shirt tucked into belted cargo shorts, sunglasses perched on his bald head like they belonged there permanently. "You must be the new guy," he said with a toothy grin. "I'm Waylon, HOA president." I blinked. "HOA?" He chuckled like I'd told a joke. "Yeah, buddy, Homeowners Association. We've got a tight ship here. Just wanted to welcome you and hand you your new resident packet." He shoved a manila envelope into my hands. Inside were a bunch of printed pages, all different fonts and some clearly scanned crooked. One was a welcome letter. Another was a list of guidelines, and then an invoice. A big, bold invoice. Move-in fee, $375, it read. Below it, administrative cost, $40. Initiation of services, $25. The total, $440. I looked up. This wasn't mentioned in anything during closing. He shrugged. "Agents forget, or maybe your seller didn't disclose, but it's standard. Everyone pays. Plus, starting next month, you'll get your $80 monthly dues invoice. $80 a month, cheap compared to some places," he said, grinning again like this was a bargain. "Where are the bylaws, the CC and Rs? It's all in the packet." "No, I mean the legal ones. Filed with the county." He waved a hand like I was being annoying. "Don't worry about all that. The paperwork's old, but we've been active for years. If you don't pay, it's subject to late fees and eventually liens." That raised an eyebrow. "Liens on my house?" He stepped off the porch like the conversation was over. "You'll get used to it. Everyone does." He was gone before I could argue further. The next morning I spread everything out on my kitchen table. The rules were laughable. One had a section on allowable curtain colors: white, beige, or soft dove gray. Another said trash bins could only be visible on pickup day, and only between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. There were pages about lawn length, pet noise, and even acceptable garage activities. One paragraph read, "No excessive garage fiddling." What the hell did that even mean? That afternoon, taped to my front door in glaring red ink, was a violation notice. Violation. Grass not fully edged. Fine, $25. I didn't even own an edger. I'd barely finished unpacking. I called the number listed at the bottom of the notice. Waylon answered, sounding bored. "Yeah, this is Jeff on Ashcroft. Hey man, got our little reminder already, huh? I moved in 4 days ago." I haven't even finished unpacking. "Well, we expect residents to maintain appearances. New or not, where does it say edging is required? It's under curb appearance. It's vague for a reason. We have discretion." That set off alarms in my head. "So basically, you fine people whenever you feel like it. We encourage compliance through structured enforcement." Sounds like bullshit to me. There was a pause. Then a click. He'd hung up. A few days later, another violation. Trash can visible from driveway. The bin was behind a bush. The fine, $30. Then came exterior paint tone slightly inconsistent with HOA palette, $50. And bafflingly, aggressive bird feeders may attract nuisance wildlife, $20. I started snapping photos of everything. I began tracking my own violations and my neighbors'. I caught Waylon driving around slowly in his dented SUV, camera in hand. He'd circle back to a house, park, get out, and tape a notice to the door without even knocking. One Saturday morning, I caught him taping another notice to my front door. "You didn't even look," I said, stepping outside. He didn't miss a beat. "I've got records of what I saw yesterday." "You mean the bird feeder?" "You can argue it at the next HOA meeting." "When is that?" "Third Thursday of the month. Community room over on Briar. But unless you're current on dues, you can't vote." I crossed my arms. "So I'm welcome to attend, but I get to sit quietly while you pretend this isn't a scam?" He gave me that fake smile again. "You catch on quick." I asked around. Everyone had a Waylon story. Mrs. Avery, 2 doors down, had been fined $200 for hanging a wind chime that produced excess decibels. The Thompsons got a $300 fine for parking their RV in the driveway for 2 days during vacation prep. A young couple down the street, Erica and Devin, told me Waylon once threatened to sue them over unapproved flag mounting. It was a pride flag. You paid him, I asked. Yeah, Erica said. We didn't want to deal with a lien. He sends certified letters with fake legal threats. Then there was Randall. He'd lived in his house since 1994. He just laughed when I asked if he paid. I told him to screw off, Randall said. I bought this house before he even moved here. There was no HOA. So what happened? He stuck a lien notice on my mailbox. I called the county. Turns out it wasn't real. Just some letterhead he made on his computer. You want copies? I took him up on it. The more I dug, the worse it looked. There was no HOA website, no board members, no election schedules, no verified bylaws on record with the city or county. Waylon ran everything, from the mailing address to the so-called compliance forms. I emailed the escrow company that handled my closing. Can you confirm if 4557 Ashcroft Drive is part of any active HOA? Their response: our records show no HOA association for that property. If one exists, it was not disclosed through the official title search or required documentation. I printed that email and pinned it to my refrigerator. It became my motivation. By week 4, I'd had enough. I'd collected 7 violation notices, 3 separate invoices, and more than 11 neighbor stories. I put together a flyer and walked door to door. Do you know WHO you're paying? It read. I included excerpts of the invoice, legal phrasing he used that didn't match actual code, and the email from the escrow office. I made 50 copies. Some people ignored it. Some looked scared. Others looked relieved. You mean we don't have to pay him? One woman asked. Show me where it says you do, I replied. Waylon, of course, didn't like this. The next day, a certified letter arrived. Cease and desist. Unauthorized distribution of false and damaging information. I laughed and tacked that to my fridge too. But I wasn't stopping. I was just getting started. The night of the HOA meeting arrived with storm clouds. Not figurative ones, literal ones. Thunder cracked somewhere off in the distance as I pulled into the community center lot, over on Briar, headlights sweeping across a small gathering of vehicles. Mostly older sedans, a few SUVs. One weird little van painted like a desert scene. That one belonged to Randall. Of course he showed up. The building was a relic, wood-paneled walls, buzzing fluorescent lights, and a coffee machine that looked like it hadn't worked since 1998. Folding chairs had been arranged in rows facing a collapsible plastic table. Behind that table sat Waylon, smug as ever, wearing the same tucked-in polo and a name badge that looked like it had been printed on a cereal box. Welcome, he said with that same forced grin. Please sign in if you're current on dues. I ignored him and took a seat near the front. People trickled in. Erica and Devin waved and sat behind me. Randall plopped into the seat next to me and muttered, "Got a flask." Just say the word. The room eventually filled to standing room only. A few neighbors I'd never met stood near the back with arms crossed. Some held envelopes, likely violations. Some looked angry. Some just confused. Waylon tapped a gavel, yes, a literal gavel, on the table. Meeting is now in session. First order of business, reminders about lawn maintenance and ongoing compliance violations. I raised my hand. Waylon ignored it. Second, we have a budget update. We're currently collecting at 87% participation, which is excellent, but we still have some outstanding fines. You mean extortion, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Waylon's smile disappeared. Jeff, this isn't the time. I stood up. Then when is the time, Waylon? You've been issuing fake fines, collecting dues from people who aren't even in an HOA, and threatening legal action like you're some kind of judge. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Devin clapped. A woman in the back shouted, "Yeah, what are we actually paying for?" Waylon's eyes darted. This is not the appropriate forum for. What is the forum then? Because as far as I can tell, this is it. No board, no votes, no transparency. Just you and a stack of clipboards. Someone else yelled, "Where's the financial report?" Another. "I want to see receipts." Waylon banged the gavel. "This meeting is out of order. If you can't behave—" "No," I interrupted. "You're out of order, and I have documentation." I pulled out my folder and walked to the front. I slapped down the email from the escrow company. No HOA is legally associated with my property. And I'm not the only one. Erica stood up. Ours too. We checked. No HOA listed, Randall chimed in from his chair. Mine either. This whole thing's a sham. I've got letters from the county. Waylon's face flushed. You people are being misled by misinformation. Misinformation? I held up one of his violation notices. This is a legal threat. You said you'd file a lien. Turns out that lien is worth less than toilet paper. You're running a scam, Waylon, and you've been doing it for years. Chaos erupted. Half the room was shouting. People began pulling out papers, taking videos on their phones. A guy near the back yelled, "I paid over $2,000 last year in fines. Where the hell did that money go?" Waylon tried to regain control. "I am the elected president of this community, By who? Someone shouted. He pointed to a binder. It's all in the charter. That binder is handwritten, I snapped. With whiteout over the dates, a woman marched to the front and flipped open the binder. She held it up. There's no board member list, no election dates. This is garbage. Then the clincher. Mr. Lewis, a quiet man in his 60s, stood up. My house has been here since '79. We opted out of the HOA when the builder offered. We have the original paperwork. I can get copies for everyone. Gasps. Actual gasps. Whalen was sweating now. He grabbed his binder and tried to pack up. Meeting's over, he muttered. But nobody moved. People blocked the door. You don't get to walk out of here without answering, Erica snapped. You want to play legal games? Fine, Whalen snarled. I'll have my attorney contact each and every one of you. Oh good, I said. We'd love to meet them. Maybe they can explain why you've been cashing checks into a private bank account under the name Ashcroft Neighborhood Fund. Someone gasped. Randall whistled. Oh, you're done now. I passed around copies of the screenshots I'd printed, images of Whalen's deposit slips, names that didn't match any incorporated HOA. The tension in the room exploded. People were shouting. One guy tried to grab the binder from Whalen. He pushed him back. Touch me and I'll sue. Sue away, said the woman with the binder. But first maybe the cops want a word. That hit him hard. You could see it, like he hadn't considered the police might get involved. He backed into a chair and sat down. His voice was small. You don't understand the work I've put into this place. I've kept order. I've protected property values. You've lined your pockets, I said. With our money. People started chanting, audit, audit, audit. Whalen tried to stand, but Randall blocked him. Sit down, con man. You're not going anywhere. Someone had already called the non-emergency line. 2 sheriff's deputies arrived 15 minutes later. They walked into a room crackling with energy. What's going on here? The taller one asked. We think we've uncovered a fraud, I said. And we've got paperwork, lots of it. They asked everyone to calm down, took statements, asked Whalen to step outside. He refused at first. Then the shorter deputy said, either you walk out or we escort you. Whalen followed them, carrying his binder like it was going to save him. Inside, nobody left. The meeting continued without him. I stood in front of the crowd. I'm not trying to be in charge, but I think we need to figure out who actually belongs in a legitimate HOA and who doesn't. We need a lawyer, we need records, and we need to shut this guy down. Applause, cheers. Someone yelled, Jeff for president. No thanks, I laughed. But I'll help. I'll absolutely help. By the time the room cleared out, a plan had started forming, numbers exchanged, documents promised, people furious, finally unafraid. It was like someone had lifted a veil. Whalen thought he had us cornered with fake authority and red ink. But now he had a mob on his hands, a legally savvy, fed-up, organized mob. And we weren't going away. The day after the HOA meeting debacle, I didn't even get out of bed until noon. My throat hurt from yelling and my head was still buzzing with everything that went down. I sat at my kitchen table with a pot of coffee, replaying Whalen's smug face as he got bombarded by neighbor after neighbor. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something. He never once pulled out the HOA documents, not the bylaws, not the CC&Rs, nothing official. He just stood there and barked back like a dog backed into a corner. That was it. I needed to see the actual documents for myself. I started with the county records office. I dug through their website, hunting for anything that tied my address to an HOA. Nothing. No record of any filings. Not just for my house, but for any house on Ashcroft Drive. The closest match was an old HOA that had dissolved in 2003, according to the disbandment document I paid $14 to download. The name, Ashcroft Estates Association, the name Whalen used on his fake letterhead. Next, I drove to the county clerk's office and asked for any HOA-related filings attached to my property. The clerk ran the parcel number and looked confused. There's no HOA tied to your lot, she said. Are you sure there's one operating here? I almost laughed. Oh, he's operating all right. She leaned in and lowered her voice. You should talk to legal records. If there are liens or enforcement claims, they'd know. So I did. I went to legal records and had them check for any active or expired liens involving Whalen, Ashcroft Estates Association, or my parcel. Still nothing, no legitimate liens, no registered organization, just a void where a real HOA should have been. I printed everything. The clerk even stamped a few documents for me. By the time I got home, I had a folder thick enough to smack Whalen with, not that I was planning to, yet. Now I needed to go through the so-called rules Whalen passed out. I compared them to the old HOA documents I had paid for online, just in case there was any overlap. It became obvious that Wayland had pulled together his rules from a hodgepodge of other neighborhood documents. Some rules were clearly ripped from a newer, fancy HOA about 10 miles away. Others were laughably vague or contradictory. One said all fences must be 6 feet tall and painted white. Another said fences were prohibited entirely. One section said monthly dues were $60. Another page, stapled randomly in the back, said $85. The more I read, the more it became clear Wayland was making it all up. I called Erica and Devin. "We need to get a few people together. I want to show you something." They came by that night. Randall showed up too, with a 6-pack. I spread everything out on the table. "So," I said, tapping the stack, "here are the supposed rules Wayland gave us. And here's what I found." I walked them through it. The expired HOA, the lack of official filings, the contradictions, the forged letterheads. Devin shook his head. "He just made himself president of nothing." "Worse," I said. "He invented a fake government and started taxing people." Erica's eyes widened. "And threatening legal action if we didn't comply." "Exactly." Randall cracked open another beer. "So when are we burning him at the stake?" I grinned. "Let's start with something a little more civilized. We need more people involved. We need documents, emails, letters, anything that proves he tried to enforce this fake HOA. Over the next week, I collected stories, emails, and letters from anyone willing to speak up. Devin made a Google form for people to submit their experiences anonymously. Erica made flyers that looked professional, not angry. Randall brought over copies of letters Wayland had posted on his mailbox over the years. The stories poured in. A retiree had been paying $80 a month since 2016 because Wayland said the dues supported neighborhood maintenance. Nothing had ever been maintained. A single mom had been fined $150 for excessive Halloween decor, plastic skeletons, and a fog machine, and paid it because she was scared of legal threats. Someone else shared an email where Wayland threatened to take them to subdivision arbitration court, which I later confirmed was completely fictional. It didn't take long before the Google form had over 40 entries, and people were pissed. One guy named Alan showed up at my door with a binder. Every payment I made, every letter he sent, I want this guy buried. The final piece fell into place when Erica talked to a friend of hers who was a paralegal. Her name was Sasha. She came over one night and we laid it all out for her. She barely said a word for the first half hour. Then she looked up and said, "You know, what he's doing might not just be civil fraud. This could be criminal." That shut everyone up. "He's creating legal threats, forging documents, impersonating a board," she said. "You have receipts, letters, threats, all with his name on them. If he cashed any checks under the name of this fake HOA, that's wire fraud. Maybe even mail fraud, depending on how he delivered those notices." Devin leaned forward. "So what do we do?" Sasha smiled. "You keep collecting. I'll talk to someone at the DA's office." Quietly, we kept it quiet. But the tension started to ripple. Wayland knew something was up. He started driving by more often, sometimes slowing down in front of my house and just sitting there. He posted another violation notice on my door. Unpermitted signage and unauthorized meetings. I posted it on our new community message board, one I had set up separate from the old Facebook group Wayland ran. People roasted him in the comments. Then one day Randall called me. "Check your mailbox." I did. Inside was a letter. Not from Wayland, from the county attorney's office. They wanted to meet. It was signed by someone Sasha had spoken to. We were officially being taken seriously. The plan was simple. At the next HOA meeting, which Wayland had posted on Facebook as happening in the same community center, we were going to show up with everything. Not just us. Dozens of us. And we weren't going alone. Sasha arranged for a detective to attend undercover, just to observe. She said it would help build the case. I printed packets for everyone who RSVP'd to our real meeting invite. The packets included proof that the HOA had been dissolved, examples of fake notices, quotes from county officials, testimonies from neighbors. The night before the meeting I couldn't sleep. My phone kept lighting up with messages from neighbors, each more fired up than the last. "We're taking this guy down," one text read. "He fined me for a bike leaning against my garage," read another. "Do you think we can sue him?" That last one got me thinking. Not just about him, but about the people who paid him money for years, about what he owed them. This wasn't just about pride anymore. It was about justice. We didn't tiptoe. We didn't send polite emails. We formed a war council. Randall hosted the first gathering. His living room was cluttered with old Civil War books and dusty photographs, but he had the biggest dining table and a deep hatred for Wayland. He was a mosquito, Randall told us, sucking money out of people and buzzing away before they could slap him. 8 of us sat around that table. Erica and Devin brought spreadsheets and files. Mrs. Avery brought ginger snaps and a box labeled HOA crap. Two others, Michael and Denise, were quieter but had dozens of emails and violation slips to share. I had my folder of copies, the escrow email, and a few photos I'd printed of Wayland stuffing envelopes from his garage. Who laid it all out? Dates, payments, names, threats, copies of letters with fonts that looked suspiciously like something whipped up in Microsoft Word circa 1999. There were no board signatures, no alternate contact, every document traced back to Wayland. "We need a lawyer," Erica said. "Can we even afford that?" Devin asked. "We can," Randall replied, reaching for a yellow folder. "Because if this jackass did what I think he did, we can sue him for every cent he touched. Plus damages. Fraud like this, judges don't go soft on it." Denise lifted her head. "But how do we know who's in the HOA and who's not? I bought my place in '06 and nobody ever said anything about an HOA. Then in 2014 I get a notice. Just showed up one day. That became the next mission. We split up the neighborhood and combed through county records. Some houses were built before any HOA documents were filed. Some were added after. Some, like mine, had no mention of an HOA at all. Of the 124 homes in the subdivision, only 38 were ever legally brought under HOA jurisdiction. The rest, totally independent. No dues, no bylaws, no obligations. Wayland had been collecting from nearly 100 homes. That's tens of thousands a year, Devin muttered, staring at the spreadsheet. "No wonder he bought that boat," Erica said. "We pooled funds for a retainer and found a lawyer named Chandra Patel." She was sharp-eyed and skeptical at first, but when she saw the evidence, her eyes narrowed. "He's not just impersonating an official," she said. "He's engaged in financial fraud, mail fraud, and possibly real estate interference. If he's threatened legal action with fake documents, that's serious." She filed immediate cease and desist letters under her letterhead and began compiling for a civil suit. Meanwhile, we created our own neighborhood newsletter. No HOA name, no branding, just a header. We listed which homes had no legal HOA obligations. We explained the fraud. We included a hotline to reach Chandra's office. And then it went nuclear. Someone, probably Wayland, ripped flyers off mailboxes, dumped them in the street, and sent anonymous letters calling us liars. But the damage was done. People were asking questions. Wayland's knock-and-threat routine didn't work anymore. Neighbors stopped answering the door when he showed up. We heard he went house to house trying to correct the record. But by then he was a walking joke. 3 weeks into Chandra's work, she held a public meeting at the community center. 60 people showed up. Some angry, some confused, some clinging to the belief that Wayland was legit. But after Chandra walked them through the paperwork, showed the legal filings, and handed out county record printouts, the mood shifted. People started yelling. Not at her, at each other, at the system, at Wayland. One guy, red-faced and shaking, shouted, "I gave that man almost $9 grand in 10 years for what? For trash can violations?" Mrs. Avery stood up and waved her wind chime violation slip like a battle flag. "He threatened to sue me for a plastic sun catcher." Then someone pointed toward the back of the room. "There he is." Heads turned. Wayland had shown up. He wore his usual tucked-in polo and smug expression, but for once he didn't look so confident. Chandra wasted no time. "Mr. Wright, I suggest you don't speak. Anything you say could be used against you." He ignored her. "This is a witch hunt. A bunch of disgruntled neighbors who don't want to follow rules. I've been doing this for the good of the community." "Then why?" Chandra asked calmly. "Is there no formal filing with the county? No board election records? No bank account disclosures? Where is the money? I have it accounted for." "Then show it." Silence. He looked like he wanted to punch a wall. Instead, he turned and walked out. That was the last time he appeared in public around here. The legal firestorm that followed wasn't quick, but it was relentless. Chandra filed on behalf of 31 homeowners. Others joined later. She involved the district attorney's office once the evidence crossed from civil into criminal. Bank subpoenas showed that Wayland had opened an account in the name of Ashcroft HOA using a P.O. box and a fake IN. The address? His own garage. He bought a boat, remodeled his kitchen, and took 2 cruises, all paid from that account. The DA filed charges: fraud, embezzlement, impersonating an official, and misuse of funds. They arrested him at home. The photo hit the local paper, Wayland in handcuffs, being led out in his golf shirt and khaki shorts. It wasn't enough. Not yet. We kept pushing. Chandra filed an injunction to freeze the bank account. She launched a recovery claim for every homeowner. And she filed paperwork to formally dissolve any pretense of the HOA. That took the longest. There were still a handful of loyalists. People who thought the rules kept things tidy, or liked pretending we were in some kind of elite gated community. But the numbers were too overwhelming. One homeowner, Tony, showed up to the final hearing with a poster board titled "Where My Money Went" and listed a decade of petty fines: Christmas lights too early, sprinkler overspray, garage door left open, unapproved mailbox color. If I wanted to be micromanaged, he told the judge, I'd move back in with my mother. The court ordered restitution. Not everything could be repaid, but Whalen was forced to sell his boat and liquidate the fake HOA account. It was a start. The neighborhood changed. The HOA office sign disappeared from his garage window. People painted their houses how they wanted. Wind chimes came back in style. A woman on the corner installed a 12-foot metal dragon sculpture in her yard. No one said a word. The real miracle was the block party, Randall's idea. We called it freedom from fraud. There was barbecue, music, and a bounce house. I hung every violation letter I ever got on a clothesline and let people throw darts at them. Erica and Devin printed t-shirts. We never got an apology from Whalen. Never heard from him again either. He moved out quietly one night, house sold at a loss. Some scars remain. Some people are still angry. Some are embarrassed they fell for it. But no one wants another HOA, ever. And me, I still have that email from escrow on my fridge. It's a reminder. When someone knocks on your door with a packet of rules and a bill, don't just nod and pay. Ask questions. Ask a lot of them, because sometimes the only rule they're really following is how much they can get away with. I don't know what's worse, Whalen being a total fraud, or everyone else just paying up without asking questions for years. Like, seriously, dude made up bird feeder violations and y'all just handed him money like he was the HOA king of your block. This is what happens when people are too scared to question a guy in cargo shorts with a clipboard. You all let it happen. He should be in jail, but half that neighborhood should be slapped too. If someone tried to find me for wind chimes, they'd end up with a mailbox full of glitter bombs. Wild that it took one guy to burn it all down. This is why I tell everyone to read every line of their closing docs, title reports, and any so-called HOA junk they're handed. This Whalen creep got away with textbook fraud using nothing but cheap fonts and fake threats, and half the neighborhood just lined up to hand him cash. Move in FEE. That alone would have set off alarm bells for me. And the fake liens, yeah, that's illegal as hell. The part that really pisses me off is how he targeted people. Wind chimes, flags, even curtain color. He wasn't enforcing anything. He was looking for easy targets who wouldn't fight back. And the fact that he had zero legal standing and still managed to intimidate people for years? Insane. He's not some mastermind. He's just a lazy, middle-aged loser who realized he could grift people by printing official notices from his garage. It's infuriating, and honestly terrifying because it worked. For years. And the cherry on top, he had the balls to show up at a community meeting and call them a witch hunt. Bro, you ran a pretend government and stole tens of thousands from your neighbors. If there's any justice, I hope the next HOA meeting he attends is in prison, with bunk inspections and all. Break the law. He sprinted past it and cartwheeled through the fraud section of the penal code. The minute he created a fake IN and opened a bank account under the HOA name, boom. Wire fraud, mail fraud, impersonating an official. At this point it's not just shady, it's organized criminal behavior. Dude used the U.S. Postal Service to threaten legal action that had zero basis in law. That alone is enough to get federal attention. And he didn't even try to hide it. He had a whole operation out of his garage, like it was HOA Breaking Bad. I hope everyone who paid him gets their money back and then some. But if they don't sue him into oblivion, they're missing a golden opportunity. He deserves every fine, every lawsuit, and every bit of public humiliation that comes his way.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.